For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise. And you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. Welcome to another Scribble, everybody. This is, I don't even know what it is, episode 23 of our weekly podcast. Thank you so much for joining it. I always love hearing your tweet. I don't hear your tweets. I read your tweets, but your emails and everything like that. So actually, we've got somebody who's been listening to this show for several weeks now, and he's always got an opinion about something. We tweet back and forth. We Facebook message back and forth. And so we're going to bring him on. This is the first time that we're having just a regular common folk guest. We're going to talk current events with my friend Michael coming up in just a little bit. So last week we were in Dawson City, Yukon for the Dawson City Music Festival. Again, all of that coverage is at dawson.jbonair.com, dawson.jbonair.com. We were touting it as live coverage all weekend. Unfortunately, the internet connection and the reception on everything out there, it's kind of crummy. We're about an hour from Alaska, in case you don't know where the Yukon is, and it just didn't work. So we couldn't do live updates all weekend, but all of the content is on there now. Check it out, dawson.jbonair.com. So we're going to talk about everything from poor Cecil the Lion. We're going to talk Donald Trump and his bid for the presidency, Caitlyn Jenner, and anything else that we can cram into the next 30 minutes. So let's get right to it. I think it's time for some Scribble Dribble.
Scribble Dribble brought to you by SpeakFreeWithJB.com.
Thank you.
Check out syndicated newspaper columnist Jeremy Bradley's rants and raves in his weekly news and entertainment columns.
Yay.
That's at SpeakFreeWithJB.com. Since he's paid to not shut up, God knows why. Once again, Jeremy Bradley.
All right, so I've got Michael joining us on the line right now. Lots of opinions about the stories we're talking about today, so let's go through some of them right now. Thanks for joining us, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so first up, everybody's talking about Cecil the Lion. Now, in case people haven't heard about it, a Minnesota dentist, he's the one who apparently killed this famous lion. He was on a hunting trip, paid a company, I think it was like $50,000 for the hunt. Now, the story goes, and of course, we're not reporting the news here, we're just recapping media reports. The story goes that they strapped a dead animal to the roof of the car, lured Cecil out of this protected area, hunted him, shot him with a bow and arrow, followed him on GPS, and then, cut off his head and skinned him. So naturally, people are now back here in the United States protesting outside the dental office of Walter Palmer. People are suggesting he be killed and skinned and head cut off. So, there's a few sides to this debate, right? Was he hunting legally or was it illegal? And then two, if it was legal, is sport hunting barbaric? I guess there's a few sides to this one. So Michael, chime in here on this. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously something that's caused a lot of problems for Americans in general, a lot of internal conflict. When this happens, you always assume it's an American, don't you?
Yes.
And sadly, it was proven correct again. I've talked to a lot of different people, actually, on this particular story. People have been demonizing hunting in general, but I've also heard from actually quite a few people who say that hunters are some of the largest conservationists. If there wasn't hunters out there doing this sort of thing, these lands wouldn't be protected already. So I think that there's a wide variety of opinions on the matter.
I guess, hunting for food is one thing they say, but, was this really fair when you're luring the animal out of this this area where it should have been to then, have this and to pay so much for this prized, like I said, famous lion? I mean, I've never heard of him, but, that's where the whole, did he cross the line, did he not? It's one thing to kill the animal, cut off the head, and then pose with it as a trophy, or eat it for food if you're legitimately hungry and that's what your source of food is.
Yeah, well, clearly this guy wasn't hungry. He has been photographed capturing, I guess, hunting a variety of prey over time. And in fact, he got in trouble a few years back when he killed a black bear in Wisconsin on grounds where he wasn't supposed to be. So he, was charged in that and ended up, it was a misdemeanor, ended up paying about $3,000 and got probation. But so, he's no stranger to this practice. He paid somewhere in the range of $55,000 to go on this trip, and the fact that he lured the lion out of the protected area, I think that's the most suspicious, the most telling part of the whole thing. And I think it's causing the most anger in the situation, and rightfully so. Rightfully so, right? If it was on the up and up, why would you have to lure a lion out of the area?
Right. Now, we haven't heard much from him because he's apparently in hiding, and he's also, I guess, hired sort of like security, police detail, and even a PR agency to respond to, to these comments and these questions. But you just mentioned he's got this track record or history of not being the most lawfully abiding hunter. So innocent until proven guilty, yes, but given the facts that we know, luring this out and, following on somebody else's GPS that it was this other conservation group that was, tracking the lion not to kill it, it's sort of hard to say, he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, the guilt seems to be on him. After all, the people that he was with, two other guys, one was a hunter and I believe the other one owned the land. Those guys are in trouble. They're being prosecuted by the Zimbabwe government. So, is he going to have his turn in court? It's pretty clear that they want him. Celebrities have been chiming in, tweeting out his home address. Jimmy Kimmel broke down on air and he clearly choked up. He was supposed to be delivering a comedy monologue, but he gave anything but comedy. It was very serious, and you can tell that it has affected a lot of people very deeply. I think the big questions that a lot of people have been raising is this anger well placed? One lion happens to be a very famous lion that it was actually Oxford University was following this lion in his pride for a period of time, and they're the ones who actually had the GPS on the lion, so they were able to locate him, and they figured out that something was wrong. Is this well placed? I think that's the big question. Obviously, animals are being poached all the time. We are encroaching upon their land more and more every year. Species are dying out. I think there's something like 4 white northern rhinos left in the world. So is all of this anger being well placed, or should it be redirected? I think that's an interesting question that a lot of people have been raising.
It's interesting, though, people are comparing it to go and say, like, why the outrage over animals when... And I've read it. I've read the stories about, African children are being killed. Africans are being killed, yet a lion... people are so outraged. Why aren't people more concerned that people are losing their lives? Is that a fair comparison between the two?
Well, I think it is. It's a question that I think about a lot as well. When you see those commercials that come on TV where, it's a foundation raising money for animals versus the foundation raising money for humans, which one generally gets the most sympathy? I think if I were to stake a guess, I would say that it's usually the animals that get the larger degree of outcry. Probably, I don't know what kind of money each one raises, but the more people express how they can hardly watch, the sad puppy dogs and cats on TV with Sarah McLachlan singing in the background. So I think that this is animals are in fact, more helpless, more defenseless. I don't know, compared to a child, I would say children are quite defenseless on their own, but these animals, I guess, are completely dependent upon us for their care and well-being. So I can see. I am internally conflicted about that as well.
And of course, a shout out to our friends at the ASPCA and CEO Matthew Bershadker. So let's talk though about the public outcry. Then as we've said, this guy is getting death threats. People are protesting outside the dental office. PETA, I now understand, is involved. Death threats. Is that a little extreme then? Now, given the unrest that's been in several different areas of the country, Ferguson, etc., it seems like people are ramping up their protests in a big way lately.
Yeah. Death threats do extreme? Absolutely, in my opinion. I mean, no one should ever be issuing death threats. Should he be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law? I think that's a very viable argument. I think that people are actually crossing a pretty dangerous line when they're willing to call for vigilante justice, tweeting out the home address of this guy or, putting things in front of his office. I mean, you can make a statement that way for sure, but when it comes to borderline violence, I would never advocate something like that. And I think that it's a very fine line to be walking. And, like you said, there are things that are going on in the world like Ferguson, like other demonstrations around the country. I mean, there are new, issues being raised all the time about police brutality and other violence around the country. Those are perhaps more real to people's lives, and yet they're less outraged about that. And I think that says something about the national mindset. I think we should be a little bit more outraged about those kinds of things. And, perhaps this anger could be redirected in a much more productive way. I mean, if you want to keep these things from happening, you're going to have to ensure that these animals have safe havens, that they, are well protected, that land is set aside, that people can't travel across the country by paying $55,000 to kill an endangered species like this.
Let's speculate. Of course, he's in hiding, and we don't really know what the outcome of this will be for him. Could be jail time, as we've heard. Do you think that he will ever practice dentistry again? Like, do you think that his career or his life could ever possibly be the same going forward?
It's a good question. I mean, I guess the same question would be raised about people who are caught up in very significant, well-publicized crimes like Casey Anthony, for instance. Would she ever have a real life again after everything that happened, after all the publicity, after all the fallout? Maybe not. Maybe not. It would be hard to live a life like that after you became so famous. Now, if he does stay in hiding, people really only know him by name, not so much by, his image.
Wow.
So he may be able to kind of resurface in a different light. I would never think that people should advocate violence. I do not advocate violence. I don't think that there should be celebrities calling for it. That's a really good question. Let's throw it back at you. Do you think that he'll ever be able to come out of hiding?
Well, I think that what could end up happening is I think he might get guilted into doing some sort of a public service announcement or some sort of, nice campaign to make it, we saw that with Michael Vick and the dog fighting, bust, that he tried to redeem himself or at least tried to create a public image for himself. He's gone to a PR agency almost immediately after this hit. So somebody advised him, or he knows the drill here when it comes to business. Like, I need somebody to speak for me, or at least, put out a politically correct statement. So if he's already gone that far, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of a campaign that, you're going to see him posing with a live animal or something to try, to turn this around. Now, one of the other things that we are going to talk about today is, you said about, the state of the country and where things are at. Let's move on to Donald Trump and his bid for presidency, because this one's an interesting one. He's a celebrity, so it's sort of entertainment story and it's kind of politics. Now, we don't talk about politics on the show. We do talk about entertainment because he's been on the show when we've covered Celebrity Apprentice, the finale in New York. There's a weird overlap here. People are criticizing Trump for a number of reasons. One, he has no filter. That's what he's known for as a celebrity and also a business person. He doesn't know when to shut up. We know that. But since he's announced his run for office, he's stirred up so much more controversy. Now, it's one thing to be a celebrity and do that to get people talking, to watch your show, but when you're running for office, you're wanting people to like you and vote for you. Of course, we're seeing these polls that some of them are saying he's in the lead, some of them are saying he's got no chance in hell. What are your thoughts? I mean, some of the media outlets, I think it's Huffington Post, is not reporting in the politics section. They're keeping him in entertainment. So what are your thoughts on a celebrity running for president?
Well, I mean, it's been done before, obviously. People said similar things about Ronald Reagan, I think, when he was running. But that being said, the thing a celebrity knows better than anything else is that pageantry and theater works. And I think that his people, whoever is making the decision, perhaps it's he himself, they know what his strong point is, and that is being an outspoken, opinionated, unfiltered personality. And I think that, the polls have reflected that people don't see him as a politician, which I think does work to his advantage. He is a celebrity. I mean, he is probably best known for his appearances on TV shows and his criticism of fellow celebrities. He has not been afraid to hold his tongue when it comes to talking about other people that are in the news. And, whether it's good news or bad news, there are people talking about him constantly. And, the other candidates right now basically have to be talking about him in order to get media coverage themselves. So I think that they tapped into something pretty wise at the moment, despite, regardless of if you like him or hate him.
Let's talk about that. Yes, mudslinging is one thing during a political campaign. But as we've seen, if you disagree with him, Macy's, NBC, Univision, all these, if you disagree, you're wrong, you're stupid, this is why he's right and you're wrong. Again, we're not discussing politics here, we're just saying in general. Do you think that the country needs a president that really can just piss off so many people just because they disagree with him? I mean, you're talking about federal, like trade agreements and relationships with countries and other dignitaries. Do you think that he's going to have that filter or that block to go and say, okay, maybe I do need to shut up on this?
Well, I think that experience would teach anybody that they need to censor themselves at the appropriate time. That being said, we're kind of jumping to the conclusion that he would be elected into office. And I think that the difference here is that polls show a wide opinion, but they're not necessarily showing how people are going to vote when it comes time to actually cast the ballot. So I think that at this moment, people are caught up in the fanfare. They see this outspoken individual who they perhaps can identify with somewhat. There's nothing an American likes more than an outspoken, maybe even like trash-talking individual. But when it actually comes to time to put the money where the mouth is, I don't think that it would be casting their ballot for him. So I think that he's riding the wave of popularity, and he probably could ride that wave for a relatively long time until people have to actually vote for him. And I just don't see that happening, because then I think it really comes down to, do I want this individual making those kind of decisions, those international decisions? And then again, maybe not. It's America. We don't really focus as much on international as perhaps we should.
Let's just throw one out there for you. So, which celebrity would you pick to be his vice president?
I just heard the great pairing of him and Caitlyn. Wouldn't that be a ticket?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess you're talking about just a run-of-the-mill celebrity, not a political celebrity.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
Oh, that's a really good question. Maybe somebody that brings lighter tone to the ticket. I could see him picking somebody more in line with, why not pick somebody like his own daughter? I mean, she seems to already carry a certain degree of favor with him, a certain share of the spotlight, and she certainly wouldn't disagree with any of his opinions. Plus, it'd be a really dynamic ticket.
I would have said Beyonce.
And why Beyonce?
Oh, I don't know. Just it would be fun. Because you need a musical White House. That's what you need. Or Oprah. Do you think him and Oprah would get along?
Not for half a second.
No, probably not.
I think you need someone who can stand in line with his rants more often than that. I think that she would want to carry the ticket herself.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich? Working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare? Having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom41.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom41.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 41.com. Go to freedom41.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom41.com.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Scribble Dribble brought to you by SpeakFreeWithJB.com.
Thank you.
Check out syndicated newspaper columnist Jeremy Bradley's rants and raves in his weekly news and entertainment columns.
Yay.
That's at SpeakFreeWithJB.com. Since he's paid to not shut up, God knows why. Once again, Jeremy Bradley.
Let's talk about money, because before we went on the air, this whole Caitlyn Jenner thing. Now, before any... And this is also what's weird now. These days you have to sort of do that disclaimer of, I'm proud of her, she's courageous, da-da-da-da, because if not, then you're a hater, you're a bigot, whatever. So I'm very happy for Caitlyn Jenner. I'm thrilled that she had the confidence and the courage to come forward. But the discussion is now, and we talked about it on the show a few weeks ago, is... It's one thing to try to bring awareness to this transgender issue that's in the news, because now that seems to be the trendy... It's like gluten. It's now the trendy thing. And is Caitlyn doing it for the right reasons? Because there was this bidding war where, she wanted a bit more than E was willing to give, so I'm going to shop this docuseries to other networks. Finally, E came back to the table, offered $5 million, according to the reports. So my stance on it is, if you're planning to do something with that $5 million to help educate, maybe even come up with like a group home of people for kids who were kicked out of home or something like that, then that's one thing. But what we're seeing is you're being a socialite right now, and you're living the high style fashion sort of life. Now, of course, that's what we're seeing in the tabloids. But what are your thoughts? Is this now just overexposed? Should we leave Caitlyn Jenner alone? Is it bringing the wrong kind of attention? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't fault anybody for making money the way they know how. And if there's one thing that everyone should learn from the Jenner-Kardashian machine, is that their model works. In addition to celebrity, they have made lots of money. And if it's there, if it's on the table, if you have the ability to harness your celebrity to earn money, I don't fault anybody for that. And on top of that, she has brought incredible awareness to transgender people everywhere. So that alone, I think, for me, paints a very positive picture. Just the fact that people even know a transgendered person at some point in their life, I think, is a huge step in a positive direction. I agree. I think that there's perhaps too much pressure on a lot of people to, voice their approval and congratulations. If they don't mean it, I don't want to hear it. But if it is something, that it makes them think a second longer and makes them more open and accepting of all sorts of people, not just transgender people, I don't really see how it can be wrong. Now, I know that a lot of people, like you said, because of this celebrity, this fanfare, this overexposure, it kind of paints it more in a bad light. But what else would happen? Bruce Jenner was already a celebrity athlete, and Caitlyn Jenner is going to be even more so, just because she's lived in both worlds now. It was always going to happen. It was always going to be a big deal. And too be in that position and still have, to use the word, courage to make the transition, I don't think I could do it. I don't think most people could do it. So I don't falter that.
Thoughts on giving the Courage Award at the ESPYs the other week?
Yeah, there was a lot of controversy about that. I think that it's very reasonable. I do have to say it came perhaps a bit too quick after the announcement of the transition of Caitlyn Jenner. I think if they had waited a year, that would have given it, I guess, a little bump in terms of value, in terms of that this is real and not just riding the wave of popularity.
But you, let's be honest, you produce television. You know, they were whoring that name months before the broadcast.
Right, no doubt. I mean, it was certainly leaked in the tabloids many times.
What about the TV networks jumping on this now? You know, CBS touting that the first transgender house guest on Big Brother. Like, again, it's one of those things like it's jumping on the bandwagon. It's like, hey, look at us, we're sensationalizing this because we've got a transgender person on our show this season. Is that the right kind of attention?
I think that it is tapping into what people are talking about. I think that you have to talk about what people are interested in. And it just happens that this is the hot topic at the moment. I think that it's smart of the producers to harness that. I think that missing out on it would be a lost opportunity. And, you know, perhaps where it was much more exciting to have a gay person 10 years ago, now that's old news, and nobody is even batting an eye at it. So perhaps that's progress. And nevertheless, this is going to put that in front of more people. They're going to be more comfortable with it. The level of comfort around the country should raise. And, you know, generally I'm in favor of that.
Do you think this is going to spur, as you talked about, like gay characters on TV, let's say, every sitcom, every sitcom anyway, has always had the token dumb person, the token slut, the token sarcastic person. And then when it came to the gay characters, we did see that often they were the flamboyant, right, over-the-top type of gay character. Do you think now, because again, we're talking entertainment here, do you think shows are now going to have the transgender character, whether drama, sitcom, what have you? We're seeing it already.
Yeah, you know, you're bringing up a very interesting point, because I don't know how that character, right, the transgender character, would be characterized. Like, you and I could both say, you know, what the dumb person's supposed to act like, what the ditzy blonde, what the gay character is supposed to act like, but what does a transgendered person act like? I don't know, and I am actually kind of interested to see how that is played out on TV. No, I don't think it's going to be a token character necessarily, but I do think that it is going to be an issue that people are going to have an appetite for a while, until that too becomes normalized, you know? Every civil rights movement has its moment in the sun, and I think that perhaps this is the next one. We're just at the beginning of that wave.
Would you vote Caitlyn Jenner for vice president?
That's a very good one. I would, yes, absolutely.
Give me 3 reasons why. 3 reasons why you would.
Oh, well, first of all, I think that does exactly what we were talking about before. I think it balances that ticket. And I think that the other thing is it gives you something else to talk about. You know, Trump wants to remain relevant. He wants to shock for a period of time. And I think that that's excellent, you know. Caitlyn comes from the world of athletics and celebrity, and I think that she understands that machine, that money-making machine that Trump is so very fond of. But I also think that perhaps it would make that a much more compassionate ticket. So I'm a big fan. This is probably the best idea I've heard in a while.
All right, well, you know what? We're out of time. Wow, time really flies when you're having such engaging conversation. And normally we do have our celebrity guests, but Michael's close enough. We're going to make him a celebrity after this. But thanks so much for sharing your thoughts and joining us today, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me. anytime.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Thank you very much, Larson. Yes, we are on Twitter at The Scribble Show, or as my dad would say, on the Twitter. Go to thescribbleshow.com, download the latest episodes, and also subscribe on SoundCloud and iTunes. Once again, I want to thank Michael for joining us. Always fun to have somebody chiming in on entertainment news and current events. And I will talk to you same time, same place next week, right here on The Scribble. My name is Jeremy Bradley. Till next time, bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,